Hello, this is Kelly Allen. I'm going to spend a few minutes discussing the basics for naturalization. So the general requirements to naturalize start with you have to have been a permanent resident for 5 years. However, if you received your permanent residency through marriage to a U.S. citizen and you are still married to and living with that U.S. citizen spouse, then you're eligible to naturalize after having been a permanent resident for only 3 years. The second requirement is that you have to have spent more time in the United States than you've spent outside of the United States during that 3 or 5 year period. And that is a day by day count. On your application, you're going to have to list every day that you spent outside the US. So that's the physical presence requirement. Then you have a continuous presence requirement. And what that says is that you cannot have been out of the US for more than 6 months at any one time without returning to the US. If you have been, then that breaks your continuous presence. And it's a very strange immigration statute, but what the law requires is once you break that continuous presence, then you have to wait another 4 years and 1 day from the time that you got back to the US from that trip that destroyed that continuous presence. So if you're a permanent resident and you've got your 5 years, having been a green card holder, but you were out of the US for 8 months on a trip, and you just returned January 1st of 2020. Well, you're actually not eligible to go ahead and file for naturalization. You're going to have to wait until January 2nd of 2024 before you can file because of having broken that continuous presence requirement. So you really have to be careful about that. The other common things that can present issues for naturalization would be certain criminal convictions. So certainly if you've been arrested, charged with any sort of crime since you've been a permanent resident, it's best to check with an attorney for a full analysis of your case before applying to naturalize, because something that might sound minor could really be a major issue. The other things USCIS is looking for are things like making sure that you're not behind on child support, that you've been filing and paying taxes as you've been required to do, and that there's no false claim to U.S. citizenship. So that means making sure that you never registered to vote, that you never voted in any U.S. election, because obviously you have to be a U.S. citizen to do that. So taking any of those actions would be a false claim to U.S. citizenship, which definitely creates a major issue if you then apply to naturalize. There are certainly other considerations, but those are the most common things to look for when determining whether you're eligible to become a U.S. citizen.